Hey everybody, I'm Ashleigh Banfield and welcome to Drop Dead Serious. Full disclosure, I got another cold. I just do. And so I may be wiping my nose and clearing my throat. I just got over one. I just got my voice back, but thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to plug through this because it was a really big day again. I've been dropping these podcasts really late at night because I wait for everything. I basically watch the news so you don't have to, and the Twitters and everything else. But I got a huge collection of developments in the Nancy Guthrie case, not the least of which is something that is just sort of massive, and we're only finding out about it on day 12. They found a glove. No, not the one you think you know about. Not the one they found yesterday on the side of the road. The FBI picked it up on the side of the highway. They found a glove inside Nancy Guthrie's home. So they've had that for a while because they've been in there for a while, right? And now this glove has taken on a bit of a life of its own in terms of politics and anger and sniping. And I've got something else to tell you about tonight with regard to all that. Everybody's piling onto the sheriff because he's sent the glove off for testing to a lab in Florida. Apparently, everyone's saying the FBI is being blocked from key evidence. I don't know that that's entirely true, and I will tell you why. I've talked to a couple of people tonight, somebody who knows the FBI processing inside and out. She has a very different take on it. And so I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But this glove was apparently sent to a Florida lab and not to Quantico, and that may not be a bad thing. Shock. And then also the sheriff himself, who has said he's not going to have any news conferences. He'll, not going to do any one-on-one interviews. He's going to let us know what we need to know when we need to know it. But he spoke to a local reporter, not just any local reporter. He told the anchor of KOLD, Mary Coleman, who was the recipient of one of the alleged ransom emails. He told her some things about this back and forth between, the FBI and the sheriff that's just taking on a life of its own in the media. I'm going to get to that as well. If you were watching a lot of the news today, you probably saw a big hullabaloo about the white tent that went up in Nancy's entranceway. Yep, forensic investigators erected a tent, put the sides down and went to work, but not before a lot of reporters saw the stuff they were carrying in. So I'm going to show you exactly what it was they were carrying in. And then the work product came out, bam, like within a couple of hours of them closing up that tent. They only had the tent up for about an hour, but they gave us a description of the suspect, of that guy, that eerie, freakish night terror of a criminal who showed up on Nancy's front doorstep on that video camera, right? So they've got a description. I'm going to give that to you as well. They also have the make of the backpack, formerly black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack. And then another backpack man surfaced today. Some other dude right around the same time, 5 miles away, carrying what looked like a similar backpack. I've got the resolution to all of that as well. And then guess what? Remember about a week and a half ago, I reported that my source told me that the cameras were smashed, plural, Nest cameras were smashed. Well, we've got clarification. They're certainly Nest cameras. And now there is a report that came from Michael Ruiz with Fox Digital that really backs that up. I'm going to get to that as well. I'm going to tell you what it was Michael Ruiz found underneath the Nest cam at Nancy Guthrie's front entrance. First, though, I just have to thank you again for being here. Please subscribe. It really helps. I'm not sure if that's how you... Just click that thing down below, whatever it is. It really does help as an independent journalist to keep this podcast going if you subscribe. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost you anything. I actually subscribe to people's podcasts too. So it would do me a solid. So I do ask you, please, from the bottom of my heart, subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you for being in this community. I think we're all of the same ilk. We're mindful of how much we want Nancy Guthrie to come home alive and unharmed physically. Obviously, mentally, it would be different. But we were also just sort of obsessed with how the hell this thing actually happened. And what happened, right? It's just so perplexing. And so with you, I feel as though we're in this together, sort of this crowdsourcing crime solving. And mark my words, the true crime community does a lot of this. They found Gabby Petito, for God's sake. So yeah, You're important, and you're important to me, and I couldn't do this without you. And I also couldn't do this without my sponsors, and I've got a really good one that I absolutely love. I've got a bunch of it in my freezer right now. Wild Grain. If you haven't checked it out yet, you have to. It's the first Bake from Frozen subscription box for sourdough bread. Love it. Artisanal pastries, fresh pastas, and everything bakes in like 25 minutes or less. What's even better is that everything they have in there is real. The ingredients, you can actually pronounce them. So I'm super obsessed with the sourdough bread. I have it for breakfast every morning. Yeah, with like yummy butter. And during the cold winter days that I've been dealing with for the last month, it's been really nice to be able to bake it because you can smell it all throughout the house. These boxes also are all fully customizable. So, kind of nice to have your own choices, right? Now is the best time to stay in, actually, with this cold weather everywhere and just enjoy some comforting homemade meals with Wild Grain. I highly recommend giving them a try. And right now, Wild Grain is offering you, because of me, $30 off your first box. And also free croissants for life. Are you kidding me? Just go to wildgrain.com/Banfield. Again, wildgrain.com/Banfield. Start your subscription today. You get $30 off your first box. Free croissants for life when you visit wildgrain.com/Banfield, or you can use the promo code Banfield at checkout. Okay, let me start going through this day. Every day starts empty. I've got like a blank page, and then I start filling them up, and I got a lot today. And I'm going to go to sort of like most recent events to least recent events. So kind of like what happened tonight, and then finish off with all the things that were happening all the way through to this morning. And again, it's February 12th, Thursday, as I'm recording this. You're probably going to watch it on Friday, February 13th. Friday the 13th. It just occurred to me. Okay, just be careful. Don't walk under a ladder. The black cat thing I don't believe in, but okay. So Fox News Digital was the first to report this, and then everybody sort of jumped on it as well and confirmed it, that a glove was found in Nancy Guthrie's home, right? Remember how the homicide squad was there that day? On February 1st, the Sunday when she was reported missing, they came in and the sheriff said the homicide squad was there. And we were all like, wait, what? She's reported missing, but you brought in the homicide squad? So they probably would have found that glove right away, right? My source told me there was blood inside the home. My thoughts are they probably found that glove. And you know what? Thank God. Because I can tell you this. Gloves are a mine of information, right? There's so much information in a glove. Those plasticky, latexy ones, you sweat in them. And in your sweat is your DNA. So you sweat all over the inside of the glove and you leave your DNA behind. But you also leave fingerprints in there. Sometimes there's a little bit of powder in there. And if you sweat a lot and the powder gets used up, you still could leave some really good prints in a glove, right? And when you pull that latex glove off, thwap, it pulls skin cells, right? So gloves are really good for the DNA of the perpetrator. And then, of course, on the outside of the glove, you would want to know that Nancy's DNA is on the outside. But since it's found in her house, I'm guessing Nancy's DNA is on the glove. So that's a good thing. Multiple outlets were reporting that the sheriff sent that glove off for testing to a Florida lab, a private Florida lab. And then, everything blew up, right? Everybody went fucking ape shit over this. So I want to set the record straight on what all that means. And I'm also going to read for you what the sheriff told a local KOLD journalist named Mary Coleman. She's the anchor of KOLD who was the recipient of that first alleged ransom overture. Lots of outlets have reported that the sheriff blocked the FBI from key evidence in sending this glove off to the Florida lab. Wow, that sounded awful and nasty and mean and all the rest. And I'm a bit pissed off that the sheriff's talking to Mary Coleman and not the rest of us, because he said he's not doing one-on-one interviews and he's not giving press conferences. But you know what? Good for Mary. She got good reporting. Here's what she wrote on her Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I just spoke with the sheriff and I asked him about this article from Reuters. Reuters had this report about sending the glove off to the Florida lab. He tells me there's been no evidence blocked in this case, but says the department did want all evidence submitted to the same lab versus multiple labs. He says in a meeting with the FBI today, one of the agents said, quote, "We do not want the media to divide us." We've also reached out to the FBI for response on this. The sheriff said there is still no sign of Nancy, but they have, quote, good leads. Again, that's Mary Coleman's reporting. She scored an interview with the sheriff. Good for her. But let's talk a little bit about this. I talked to Maureen O'Connell tonight. If you don't know Maureen O'Connell, you should. She's a retired FBI special agent, 25 years, runs her own personal security operation on the West Coast. She's super smart, really skilled. She's been, at this game a long time. And I was surprised when I asked her to weigh in on this. She said, I don't think that's such a bad thing. I said, wait, do what now? Because everybody's reporting that the FBI and the local sheriff were at loggerheads and the glove went off to the Florida lab and damn it, the FBI didn't have access. And she said, no, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. In fact, she went further and she said to me that there is a private lab and she thinks, she's not sure, but she thinks that the lab that the sheriff sent the glove to might be the DNA Labs International in Deerfield Beach, Florida. And if that is the lab, they solved the Colonial Parkway's murder cases. And when I say solved, like a lot, like at least six murders are now attributed to a dead guy through this lab. And they're looking at potentially tagging another 15 more murders on him as well. The guy was Alan Wade Wilmer Sr. He murdered two young women in 1986, another one in 1988. And like I said, they've already, this lab, if this is a lab, if they went to DNA Labs International, Deerfield Beach, Florida with that glove, Maureen O'Connell says they're good. They're really good. And that there's not that antagonism necessarily automatically if you're using a private lab. So let's just throw a little cold water on that. I do know that there is acrimony in that department. My source told me about that a week ago Tuesday. A lot of acrimony in that department. And then there's been an exodus from the department as well, the sheriff's department. Look, police have taken it on the chin for the last 5 years, and there's been an exodus in general policing. So that might be also a factor. And that there's the homicide guys, from what I have gathered, there's a lot of new guys on that force. I'm not throwing water on them. They're new. They've got some, they got to put in their time. But the older, more experienced guys have left. And so there might be some newer blood that doesn't have all the experience of the gumshoes from, that preceded them. So that's the way I read into this glove business. And I would wait to hear a little bit more reporting as to whether there is this antagonism between the feds and the locals. I know everybody has said it's taken a long time to bring the feds into the fold. That may have already been a mistake, and the sheriff already owned that one too. I think he said, okay, that's on me for releasing the scene. I'm not sure if he said that's on me for bringing the feds in later. I think he did. But it's something else in the Reuters article that was interesting is that the law enforcement source that spoke with Reuters, a federal law enforcement source, said that the sheriff has spent $200,000 to send evidence to the Florida lab. That's fine. That's not much. If there's a lot of work that needs to be done and it needs to be tested, fine. There's also there's a clock ticking. When you're trying to solve a murder, there isn't a clock ticking, so to speak, but when you're trying to find a missing person, there is. Because the number one priority is to find Nancy alive. And so spend that money, find that DNA, rush job, all of that. I get that. Rush job. Yeah. 200,000. Boy, I hope there's more than just a glove being sent to that lab. And I hope it is that lab, DNA Labs International, Deerfield Beach, Florida. They solved the Colonial Parkway's murder cases. Thank you. Othram Labs down in Texas. They solved the Brian Kohberger case. These private labs are good. So we shouldn't shit on anybody for using them. And I hope that the acrimony that's being reported between the sheriff and the feds is not what it sounds like in the press, and that I hope that it's not the press ginning it all up. Everybody should take a step back because this work is hard. It's hard doing it under the microscope. And it's hard when there's this many reporters, that are getting information. It's a big job and it's a lot, and there's a woman's life at stake. So I'm always wanting to offer some grace. I also want to mention this because I've been at this game for 38 years. So long. 12 days is not very long. It is an eternity for the Guthrie family who want their mother home. I get that. But 12 days to solve a crime is nothing. It takes a lot longer. And if you talk to the cold case guys, it can take decades, right? I hope that's not the case here. But I think when we all looked at the Spencer and Monique Tepe story, it took 10 days to track Michael McKee and arrest him, allegedly for these double murders. That's 10 days. And they had everything. They had like the popcorn trail on video, right? So that was quick. That was really quick. And we're at 12 days right now. And I know it's frustrating. People want resolution. People want to see Nancy home and safe. But 12 days isn't a long time. And patience is your friend when you're an investigator. You wait for the guy, obviously, to feel comfy and screw up. And let's just hope they're as dumb as they usually are and that they're going to screw up. There was earlier reporting today as well that the sheriff's office is confirming testing is underway on multiple gloves. Multiple gloves. Well, we saw one on the side of the road. The New York Post was right there. I mean, talk about great reporting. They were right there filming. They got the video of the agents getting that glove on the side of the road about a mile and a half, I think, from Nancy's house. Don't know what the result of that is, and I'm sure we won't for some time. But then multiple gloves. Fox News was reporting Trace Gallagher out in front of Nancy's house last night that they found a pair of gloves. And now this report that there is a single glove that was found in Nancy's home and that it was sent off for testing. So multiple gloves are being tested. Good, great. Happy to hear that. Let's hope that the guy who was wearing them, if it was a guy, is in the CODIS system, right? Because what you do is you get the DNA and you put it into CODIS, and if he's got a criminal record, boop, up he comes, and then you can start doing a little bit more gumshoe work, detective work after that. I heard something today that floored me. The former Pima County Sheriff's SWAT commander said that the county itself, Pima County, is the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut combined. Just think about that for a second. Pima County itself, just the county, is the size of Rhode Island and Connecticut combined. So that is a lot of ground to cover, right, for this department, for these officers, and a lot of ground for them to cover as well in this investigation. It's just, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting it to be that big. To that end, the FBI says since February 1st, which was when Nancy Guthrie was reported missing, the feds have received 13,000 tips. The feds. Remember we heard yesterday, since Feb 1, 18,000 tips have come into the sheriff's department? 13,000 have come into the feds. It's amazing. They also said that every single one of them is assessed. And this is great. I love this because I love the formal language that they use. They said each of these tips is assessed by threat intake examiners. Threat intake examiners. And they do this at the National Threat Operations Center. So it's a big deal. They also said that they've got a 24-hour command post now set up on this case. And I heard that they were going around the clock before. I thought it was just it was just colloquial, but it's true. They're working 24 hours. So I wanted you to see, I got a lot more for you, but I just wanted to bring you some color from the crime scene and all the reporters who are lined up along the street where Nancy Guthrie lives. And I'm using present tense. Nancy Guthrie lives on that street, and I hope she comes home to that house. And Brian Enton is out there all day in the pounding sun, collecting information, gathering data, talking to sources, interviewing people. And then he stopped down for a bit today to do something for us, just to bring us there. And this is like, I don't know, it's repertorial because when you're transported to the location, suddenly you get a very different feel for what it's like to investigate there, report there, be there. And he did what's called like the ride along. He drove his car and he took us on a ride along to show us Nancy's neighborhood, how complex it is. Imagine how dark it would be at night with no lights, because apparently they've got an agreement that they can't have lights in this neighborhood with the University of Arizona because of some kind of an astronomy research program. But here's Brian Enton's drive around, and I just think it's really enlightening.
And I just don't think people realize we have the drone and you can kind of get a sense of the land. But in terms of getting to Nancy Guthrie's house, these roads are twisty and turny, and there's big dips, and there's only a couple of ways in and out. This video here kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like when you're driving in here. And I've now been here for almost 2 weeks, and I was thinking about this last night when I was leaving, Nicole. Even when I leave after 2 weeks, I have to put the address to my hotel in my GPS because I can never quite figure out how to get out of the neighborhood. And I've been here every single day, and I've been coming and going all day long, which gives you an idea of how confusing and twisty and turny it is in here. And this video really demonstrates that, Nicole. So makes you think whoever came in here to do this to Nancy, knew where they were going, essentially.
Right. What I really liked about that was, just imagine how hard it would be to get the ring cams, right? Like those ring cameras for all those houses that he drove by aren't going to see much. Yeah, I mean, in the darkness, a car driving by way down your driveway through the thicket of the scrub, it's going to be really hard to solve this in the way that, the McKee arrest happened. That was all video trailing, right? On the freeways and on the highways, and then in the neighborhoods, all those cameras and all those ring cams, those are neighborhoods. They're all close together. There's no trees blocking the ring cams. This is different. This is really different. So to that end, the FBI boosted the reward today. They doubled it. It's gone from $50,000 to $100,000. And that, by the way, weirdly enough, that will generate more tips. Just by boosting the reward, apparently it gets people thinking, okay, maybe it's worth it now that I get involved. A lot of people just don't want to get involved. Whatever they know, people are afraid of the police. They're afraid of getting involved. They don't have a duty to report. Americans, you do not have a duty to report. You are not legally bound to report. Morally? Yeah, morally you're legally bound, or morally you're bound, but legally you're not. But $100,000 now. Maybe some people who were a bit apprehensive before, who know something about some guy who's talking about that balaclava, who's talking about that ski mask, or I saw that backpack and that ski mask at my friend's house. I'm not getting involved. Well, maybe now they might, right? $100,000 on the line. Okay, so I want to talk about the significance of the white tent that went up at Nancy Guthrie's front door today. You probably saw that they all showed up. The forensic examiners came up and they erected the white tent at her front door, and then down went the flaps, and nobody could see inside what they were doing, but we could see what they brought with them. And that was key, because the equipment kind of told the story about the job they were doing, right? And they brought with them a high-resolution piece of video equipment. It's called the Ultra Studio 4K Mini. And basically that allows you to record in high definition. Like if you're doing investigations, you can really zero down on something on the ground. I think somebody mentioned that maybe they're doing more testing on the blood. I'm not so sure that might have been it. Maybe. I think maybe they were looking for footprints. I think they were looking to get the footprint of the perpetrator. Because it's dusty in Arizona, right? There's light dust all the time in the desert. And so he may have left these footprints. And now, unfortunately, a lot of people have left footprints as well. Somebody delivered a package, right? Someone delivered a package. Because in the video of the perpetrator, there's no package. And then when Brian Enton goes on Monday evening, there's a package there. So there's a delivery guy. And then there's been reporters, and then there's been police and everything too. But they've maybe started to look for the footprints exactly that they can match up with the video. Maybe. They also took something called a height chart, right? Height board. And it's visible. You can see it. It's a height board. And wouldn't you know it, they were there for an hour, and down went the tent, and not long after that, they came out with a description of the suspect. Better than we've had before. I don't know why it took so long, because we've had that video now for 2 days. I kind of feel like they could have done that right away, but especially when agents went out to her house at 2 a.m. yesterday, I thought, okay, well, all right. So anyway, today we've got this description, and he is a male, 5'9" to 5'10" with an average build. So the FBI Operational Technology Division is likely the group that put this out, right? Likely the group that did all this. They came with the forensic equipment and did that kind of investigation this morning and then put that information out. John Miller, one of my favorites. He's so smart. He works on CNN. He used to work for ABC. He was a reporter for a long time. Then he worked for, City of New York in counterterror. He called it photogrammetry. Photogrammetry. I love that word, photogrammetry. Anyway, John Miller, I saw him talking about it today. He said photogrammetry was likely used in order to use that height chart, use the video, and come up with this description of a male 5'9" to 5'10" with an average build. The interesting thing is the average build, I'm not so sure because a lot of people have talked about how he looks stuffed, right? His clothes look stuffed. His shirt or his jacket, whatever you want to call it, looks stuffed. That his gloves look stuffed, that his pants look stuffed. Some people even said that his balaclava, ski mask, looked stuffed. I don't think he was that smart. Now, something just tells me by the way he was operating, he didn't have that much forethought to try to put himself on camera looking bigger than he was. Maybe. It's just something to think about. Something else that was reported today that this stopped me in my tracks. I had to get some candy after this one. Michael Ruiz, again, great reporter for Fox Digital, just great. He reported that a member of the team that went to Nancy's front door and put that white tent up worked on the Koberger case as well. They all come together, don't they? They're FBI, so I don't doubt that happened. But they have this remarkable expertise and they crisscross the country helping everybody solve their, crimes. But that really floored me when Michael Ruiz recognized one of the FBI members as being from the Koberger case. Let's talk about the backpack, shall we? I have been dying to talk about this all day. When you look at night vision, you always have to think in reverse. So when something appears light, it's usually dark. When something appears dark, it's usually light. And the backpack kind of looked like it was tan in the night vision doorbell cam, but it ain't. It's black. Confirmed by the FBI, it is a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker backpack. You can buy it at Walmart. They're very, very common. I heard somebody today from the Arizona area saying, this is going to be a tough one because this is an area where there's a ton of hiking. Pima County, there's a ton of hiking, a lot of hikers, and a lot of people would be using something like this. And if it's sold at Walmart, there'll be a lot of them. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Every time you ring one of these babies up, anything in Walmart, there is a code. It is registered. The time, the date, the cashier, everything. Okay? And so they will go and they will ask all the Walmarts in this area to check that particular code on that pack. How many were sold? When were they sold? Let's see the camera because the cameras are above all of those cashiers. Many a criminal has been caught this way. Anna Walsh's husband, Brian Walsh, was caught buying a bunch of stuff to clean up his mess after he cut her up, after he murdered her. And that's just the most recent one that comes to mind. There was another man in Houston who killed a beautiful realtor. He was seen on, I think it was a Target camera, buying some of the supplies he was using, to cover up his murder. It's like they're bozos. They're absolute bozos. And thank God for the bozos because they're easier to catch. Even Brian Koberger, who thought he was so smart with his, PhD work in criminology, was a bozo. Took his own car to his own murder. Fucking idiot. Thank God for that. So to the backpack story, you probably heard a lot about the other backpack guy today. Everybody was freaking out on the backpack guy. 5 miles away, there's this shady character who kind of looks a little like the guy on, Nancy Guthrie's camera, but his jacket's open. He looks like he's the same build. He's got a black backpack on, but he's carrying a light backpack that really stuffed. Looks just like the one in the night vision. It looks just like the one in the night vision if you don't do the reversing, right? The reversing is that the perpetrator at Nancy Guthrie's home it looked light because it's black. But in the colorized video, 5 miles down the road, that is a light backpack. And it didn't take long before the authorities knocked down this whole scenario. They cleared him. It ain't him. The timeline didn't work anyway. The pictures that you're seeing is in between the first time at 1:47 a.m. that Nancy Guthrie's cameras were tampered with and disconnected, and 2:12 a.m., which is my next piece of reporting, when these images apparently were captured. So it's a little hard for somebody to drive that far, 5 miles away, and be in between those two. Anyway, that was all knocked down. So if you were all wound up about that today, you can erase that from your memory because that's not part of this crime. Which takes me to TMZ that had this reporting that was like, wait, huh? TMZ said they got a federal source that told them that the images that we saw of this terrifying criminal on Nancy Guthrie's doorbell cam were actually registered at 2:12 a.m. So now I'm like, okay, let me think this one through. So what happened at 1:47? What doorbell cam was disconnected and tampered with at 1:47 a.m.? If that video's at 2:12. My source told me cameras, plural, were smashed. I can assume maybe the back door had a camera as well. And there is this timeline that the sheriff has given us about, activity on these Nest cams. And again, my reporting Tuesday of last week was Nest cams. And now, yes, it is Nest cams. Sheriff wouldn't confirm or deny that they were smashed. Where are you getting that? I'm not confirming that. That's what he said in his press conference. But there's information that came out from Michael Ruiz today that actually does back up that they were smashed. I'll get to that in a second. But let's talk about this 2:12 a.m. So I'm trying to think it through. My source said that the back door was wide open. So did this perpetrator disable a camera in the back at 1:47 a.m.? And this is him coming back around at 2:12 a.m. on these images with his backpack and his gun. Or, and this is where it's a little bit fuzzy because the FBI gave us a batch of images, still shots and video. And one of these things ain't like the other. I talked about it on my podcast last night. One of these things ain't like the other. One of the photos has him without his backpack and without his gun at the front, walking up to the archway, walking up to Nancy's front door. Which one came first? With the backpack and the gun, messing with the camera, or without the backpack and no gun? There's still more video that we need to see, and I think we will eventually be seeing it. I have another theory as well that I saw a commenter on Twitter, and I thought, this girl knows what she's talking about. If you look at that video of the perpetrator walking back to the shrubbery and grabbing some of that shrubbery, he grabs it with his fist, and it does seem like he kind of tests it to see how strong it is. And he walks back up to the camera, again, fisted. If you're trying to dangle it, you're not using your fist, you're using your hands, but he's fisted. And I actually think what he's doing, I got the idea from the commenter, and I believe her, I agree with her, is that he's trying to use that shrubbery as something he can pull the camera off. He's putting it in behind the little tiny slat that's in between the bracket and the camera, and he's trying to use it to pull it off. And that's why there's all this like ham-fisted activity as opposed to trying to cover up with shrubs the camera. I think that he might have been trying to pull it off that way. But they're hard to pull off and they're hard to get off, and there's very little space in between them, which leads me to my next point. Michael Ruiz reported today in one of his tweets that among the evidence at the front door, small glass fragments. Michael Ruiz from Fox Digital said, among the evidence at the front door, under the doorbell cam, small glass fragments. What happens when you smash a doorbell cam? Small glass fragments, maybe? I found that very interesting. Maybe he was able to get it off. I don't know. Or maybe he had to smash it off. But it's gone, and he took it. So the glass fragments are left behind. Super fascinating. A couple of other things that happened. Savannah posted again on her Instagram. Just can't imagine what she and her siblings are going through. Just imagine if this is your mom. Just imagine if this is your mom. You don't know what happened to her. You don't know how she is, where she is. You don't know if she's alive or dead. You don't know if she's suffering. You don't know if she's afraid. Savannah posted really lovely family videos from when she was small with her sister. And the caption read, "Our lovely mom, we will never give up on her. Thank you for your prayers and hope." There's been nothing mentioned about ransom. Nothing mentioned about the family reaching out to people regarding ransom. It seems like they've put that to bed. But TMZ did have a third note today. I mean, it's insane, right? It's becoming a circus at this point. So TMZ turned it over to law enforcement, and they got this third note, and it's from the same person who sent the note yesterday saying, "I have information, I know where Nancy is, and I want 1 Bitcoin to cough up the info," right? 1 Bitcoin's around $66,000, $67,000, depending on the day. And so this third note has come in. So the TMZ gets the first one, the first ransom note with the Bitcoin wallet demanding 4 and then 6 million. Then they get the second one with this guy saying, I have information for sale, right? Then they get this third one, same person. And they're not saying everything. They're not giving out all the information in it, but they did say it's ominous, the language that was used. They said it's the final outreach, that they're angry, they're not being taken seriously. And then later, it's interesting that TMZ said in a TV interview that the language they use is ominous regarding how this is all going to potentially end. But I think this guy's full of shit. I think it's just another bullshit parasite trying to capitalize off a tragic situation. My opinion only. I don't have inside information there. But come on. If you're really looking for, looking to score bucks, you go to the family for ransom, and you don't send notes to TMZ, selling information. It's $50,000. Well, it's $100,000 now if you tell the FBI. You can make another $30,000, more than the Bitcoin. All right. Something else that the law enforcement was doing today. The FBI was going around and asking all of the neighbors within a 2-mile radius of Nancy and her driveway to look at their ring cams. Now, this is where it's hinky. Early in the day, the reporting came out that they were just asking for January 11th, 9 till midnight. What? January 11th, 9 to midnight? What the hell happened then? And then it changed. Like just a couple hours later, the ask changed. And the FBI then asked those neighbors within a 2-mile radius of Nancy's home, could they please look at their Ring doorbell cams, their doorbell cams or whatever they've got, their security cameras, starting January 1st, all the way through to February 2nd. Okay, I mean, that's a lot. Also, police look at things with a different eye than we do. They, mere mortals. I'm not sure what they've instructed them or how they've counseled them to look at the video. Like, what am I looking for? Am I looking for a particular car or a person, and what do I do when I find it? And do I time code it? I mean, that's a lot of video to look at. I don't even know if anybody has that kind of bandwidth in their lives to be able to look at 30 days of video on their Ring cams. But that's what they're asking for. And maybe they gave them specific counsel, but we haven't been told anything. But here's the request, the statement that the Pima County Sheriff put out. Investigators are requesting all video footage that includes vehicles, vehicle traffic, people, pedestrians, and anything neighbors deemed out of the ordinary or important to our investigation from Jan 1, 2026 to Feb 2, 2026. That last part is anything neighbors deemed out of the ordinary or important to our investigation. That's the tricky part. But I mean, you got to watch this stuff in real time. And You guys are good at this, right? You guys are so good at this. True crime sleuthers are really good at this. You guys see everything. But the average guy out there doesn't maybe see everything in the frame. And so I don't know if they're going to, assign more manpower to put eyeballs on all these people's videos. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're asking for it. 2:00 in the morning last night, agents are back out at Nancy's house. 2 a.m. February 12th. So, wow, 2 a.m. They really are working around the clock, right? But what are they doing at 2 a.m. that they wouldn't be doing during the day when they got better lighting? Or maybe they just want a lot of reporters to see them. I'm not sure. 2 a.m. they're back. Revisiting the neighbors again. And I should let you know, I didn't realize this at the time, but there's only one way in and one way out of Nancy's neighborhood. And it's so frustrating because in so many other communities, we have, street cams that would capture that. I don't know that they have that in this particular area. But one way in, one way out. I mean, it's so frustrating. It should be so much easier, but it just isn't. Somebody mentioned today as well that there's been a lot of traffic going in and out of Nancy's driveway in the last 12 days. And I keep thinking, God, why? Why? We're just now, Michael Ruiz was able to show us video of droplets of blood that went out past the tiled entrance to Nancy's front door and went out on the pebbled walkway. But what about the driveway? What if there was a blood trail down the driveway and now it's all been driven over and walked over and pizza delivered over and flour delivered over? It's frustrating because while it was annoying that there was so little information in the Idaho case, 1122 King Road was locked down. Locked down. Nobody was getting within an inch of that place for months and months and months, right? Not the case here. It's very frustrating to think how much evidence could be out there, could be on that driveway that maybe was missed or at least now is compromised or shoved down in the gravel. Also just want to mention something, it's a bit of a non sequitur, but DNA testing doesn't just tell you a who, it also can tell you gender and ethnic background and eye color. So if there's DNA testing going on, then they may be getting closer to something. Better than nothing, right? Even if they don't get some hit in the CODIS, and get something out of it. So I wanted to bring up something else that, again, I keep quoting Michael Ruiz because he just does such good work. But Michael talked to a neighbor of Nancy Guthrie's who had an alternate theory as to why the suspect, it's not a suspect, he's a criminal, is looking down as he's walking up the walkway to Nancy's front door. You can see a flash of light right before that ledge. I spoke about this last night on my podcast. I think he knew that step was coming and he was lighting it up. But the neighbor had a really interesting take on that. And the neighbor said that there are a lot of rattlesnakes in this area. And if you're walking around at night, you might very well, if you know this area, be looking down and watching your step. And that might have been why his head was down. Because don't forget, even though it looks light to us, that is the darkest place you could possibly be. You wouldn't be able to see your hand in front of your face. The night vision just illuminates it for us. But what that perpetrator would have been seeing was pitch black. So yeah, the step was coming and he did light that up. But his head might have been down, not to avoid the camera, but maybe to watch for rattlesnakes in that area. Just an interesting piece of color. And then I wanted to mention something else because if you watched the podcast yesterday, and I highly recommend you do because I had this amazing conversation with Matt Murphy, who's brilliant and also a homicide prosecutor, right? Former homicide prosecutor, knows a lot about catching bad guys and putting bad guys away. And how the investigation goes. Because in his jurisdiction, they actually worked on scene. Prosecutors didn't just work in the courtroom. They worked on scene, went to the crime scenes. And Matt said he'd be interested to find out what the technology was with a pacemaker reconnecting to an iPhone. Let me walk you through it. Pacemakers don't stop if someone dies. And I'm not saying that Nancy's dead, but if Nancy's dead or alive, her pacemaker's going, right? It's still going. They take years to burn out. So if her phone were brought close to it, it would reconnect. And Matt almost was musing in real time saying, well, what if you did low flights over all these homes? Like, how far is the range? Like, what if it's 100 yards, you know? What if it's 50 yards? Is there any way that you could get her phone and start trying to find a place where it might connect? And so my husband Chris did a little research on that, actually, and he found that the pacemaker disconnect range from its Bluetooth is about 10 to 30 feet. So that's a bit of a dead end. I say bit, but 10 to 30 feet, you're not going to buzz over people's homes, right? But doesn't mean you can't have Nancy's phone on you if you're going to be going into people's homes, right? That's just sort of an interesting thought. I don't know if the investigators have thought through that. Sometimes I wonder, when all this new technology happens, they have to catch up too, and not everybody all over the country catches up as quickly. I remember during the Chris Watts case, my team at HLN and I were trying to solve it much like we're doing right now. And nightly we would come up with these thoughts about, well, what about the baby monitor? Wouldn't the baby monitor have, some ability to lend wisdom in this case? Because Chris Watts said he saw on the baby monitor, but if he's that far away and it's that big and it's black and white, would he really be able to do it? And I just remember, talking about Apple Watches and when you die and how the Apple Watch will tell you when your heart stops. And it was new. It was sort of newish stuff back then. And I just remember thinking, I wonder how many detectives know this stuff in these different little jurisdictions all over the country. It's not like they have to go to continuing ed. I mean, you hope that they're always doing continuing ed, but technology moves fast, and AI is an extraordinary tool, and I hope they're using it to help solve this particular crime. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much for listening. If you're listening, give me a comment. Give me a review. Let me know what you think, good or bad or ugly or otherwise. It really does help a lot, and I always really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Thank you for listening. And remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.